Hey, you already know who it is. It's me, Cracksmoker96, your favorite virtual idol. Today, we're going to be talking about a hotly debated topic on the channel, and it is vices. You know me. Everybody's got their vices. You've heard the saying before, and from my personal experience, it's true. Everybody has some unhealthy coping mechanism, whether they recognize it or not. Hell, some people have a few. Some people have a lot. Even rich people and successful people, the most successful people that I have met and spent time around and partied with, literally multimillionaires, trust me when I say, everybody has vices. You know, despite my rants where I go into self-improvement and, I disparage lifestyles of hedonism and vice, I'm not really a Puritan, I don't really have a super rigid, sigma male grind set of self-improvement rules that I think people should follow, and I think that sort of mindset is inherently counterproductive to self-improvement, and I'm going to discuss that later on in this video. There are many vices in modern society that are simply unrecognizable until you recognize them as vices. And that's sort of why they're so pervasive, so well accepted in our society. You know, things like porn, things like getting constant dopamine through social media, playing video games. You know, all of these things don't seem bad, but I've seen people look at their Instagram screen time and it's like, dude, you've got 8 fucking hours. That's a whole work shift. You've got 8 hours just scrolling on nothing. You don't even remember any of the posts that you looked at, dude. You need to be able to recognize when something is a vice in your life, and you need to recognize when you're going too far with it. I think that there is a healthy level of vice that is acceptable in every person's life. I think that it is okay to lay back and have fun sometimes. I think it is okay to have certain things that aren't necessarily the most healthy or productive things. You know, you're allowed to enjoy life. The problem is going too far. And many people have gone too far and they just don't realize it. Because we live in a society. We live in a society that has normalized a sedentary lifestyle of just constant dopamine. And endless hedonism too, in the service of just ardent greed. Maybe it doesn't seem too bad. Haha, it's not that bad. Are you complaining about the Zoomers being on their phones? Oh, you're just saying the kids are being on the TikTok too much. Dude, look at the statistics in recent years. These are statistics I pulled from the National Institutes of Health. It's a .gov website. You can look it up. 18.4% of the U.S. population has been diagnosed with depression at some point. 31.1% have an anxiety disorder, apparently. How is that possible? How is it possible that ordinary, functioning human beings are all of a sudden a third of the population has an anxiety disorder? All of a sudden, like 1 out of 5 people have depression? That is absolutely insane. You cannot tell me that there is like a natural hormonal imbalance in 1/3 of the U.S. population, in 1/5 of the U.S. population. I get that there's a joke about Americans being inbred, but we're not that fucked up. I think that the reason that these statistics are like this, on one hand, you can say it's personal choice, but on the other hand, I think it's that a lot of people don't recognize when they are living in a hedonistic cycle. They're unable to recognize when they are consistently harming themselves every day. And it's the thing that I complain about in every other Schizo Rant. So if you want to hear me complain about the lifestyle of the average American, the sedentary, sit down for most of the day and then go home and just do nothing, fill your brain with nonsense. If you want to hear me rant about that, go to my last video, I guess. But this one's about vices. And I just want to say, I don't judge you on your vices, whatever they are, so long as you exercise moderation. It's a common saying in most drug circles. It's like, moderation is key, man? Oh, don't do Molly every day. Just make sure you do it once every 3 months. Haha. And it's like, yeah, I get it. It's a stereotype to say, oh, everything in moderation. But genuinely, I think that no matter what your vice is, as long as you're able to be a functional, successful, and, beneficial for society human being, I think that you're allowed to have a little fun. You're allowed to have your little thing, whatever it might be. You can literally do meth, and as long as you're a nice person and you're contributing to society and you're functional, go for it, man. Smoke up that pookie, bro. I'm not in the position to judge you. I'm not perfect either. But it's one thing to go swimming by the shore occasionally. It's one thing to dip your feet in the water of the ocean. Or hell, some people can even go out and surf until you're almost too tired to walk back to your car. But you will always have to be wary of riptides. And anyone who doesn't live by the ocean, a riptide is a current of water that will pull you out into the ocean and drown you, basically. That's why they have lifeguards on duty. It's basically just because of riptides. They'll grab you, they'll take a hold of you, they'll pull you down and out into the depths of the sea, and you're going to be stranded. You're going to get to the point where you can't see land anymore. You're going to drown, cold, alone, and miserable. And some people have lifeguards in their lives. You should consider yourself fucking lucky to have that. You should love and cherish that person and don't let them ever have to save you. Because the moment they do, their heart will be fractured and their view of you will be forever changed. People don't realize how painful it is for the people they love to see them going through a negative behavioral pattern, especially in regards to vice. If you've never watched someone deteriorate, and you're allowing yourself to deteriorate yourself, you need to really imagine what it's like to be your parents, or to be your best friend, to be anyone who looks up to you. It is one of the most heart-wrenching feelings in the world to watch a person you love slowly fall apart at their own hands, and you cannot allow yourself to do that to anyone else. I hate using the word moral obligation, but genuinely, I think that if you allow yourself to deteriorate and you are conscious of the people around you who love you and you're not making an active effort to change that, you're fucked up, dude. You don't know what you're doing to us. What I'm trying to say is that it's easy to lose yourself. It's easy to not even realize that you're doing it. Some vices are worse than others, yeah, like heroin isn't porn, but you can't justify allowing yourself to consistently and constantly hedonistically indulge in anything. You can't allow yourself to lose yourself in any vice, no matter how innocuous it might seem, because in the end they all lead to the same thing. Just a feeling of emptiness and dissatisfaction with the beautiful world around you. A disconnection with the people who love you. A disconnection with the real world itself. Another aspect of vice that, is brought up a lot in discussion of this topic is the idea of using vices as a crutch. Using vices as a crutch to deal with certain things in your life. And, I think I'm going to have to agree with the mainstream on this. If you use vices as a crutch to deal with problems in your normal life, what's going to happen is it's going to be a lot harder for you to adapt to normal living after those problems have gone through. Like, let's say you break your leg and you start using crutches, right? And you have to use crutches for like a year. After that year, if you sign up for the track team at your school, you're on college track, you are probably going to have a hell of a harder time than someone who has had functional legs this whole time. And not just because of the muscular degeneration of your unused leg. It's because you got used to the pattern of walking with crutches. You got used to the pattern of having help from your upper body to walk. And that's sort of the thing. If you are using a vice as a way to cope with something difficult in your life, a trying aspect, so to speak, I think that is inherently unhealthy. And I understand that sometimes you do need a crutch. For the guy with the broken leg, of course, I'm not going to criticize him for using crutches. But that analogy is flawed in that I think a lot of problems don't necessarily need to be dealt with through vice, I think that if possible, you should try and eliminate that vice from your life while simultaneously eliminating whatever that negative aspect from your life is that's weighing you down. There are a lot of people who, and I'll give an example from like personal life. I have a lot of friends where they go and they work a job and they hate it, and they come home and they get like blackout drunk and they smoke a bunch of weed. That is inherently unhealthy, and the problem stems yes, from the unhealthy substance abuse, but it also stems from the fact that they are dissatisfied with their current point in life. And using drugs and vices as a crutch to deal with a life that you don't enjoy is just a way to remain stuck in a life that you don't enjoy and to make it worse once your tolerance gets higher. The real solution to that problem would be, continuing to work that job, toning down the alcohol because you can have seizures off the withdrawals, slowly tapering, while also going on Indeed.com and looking for a different job. If you're the kind of person who is using vice as a crutch, I'm not going to tell you to cold turkey quit. I'm not going to tell you that, you should immediately stop that because it's bad, because I understand that, from an emotional standpoint, everyone needs a little something to help them get by when they're dissatisfied with their lives, And, I do the same thing too. Like, dude, I smoke, I understand it's unhealthy. I quit for a while, but life gets stressful and sometimes you need something like that. But if there is a negative circumstance, which is, changeable, like if there's a job that you don't like or a place that you're living at that you don't like, that should be the problem that you are addressing first and foremost. Because vices, not only do they help you cope with these things, but they also distract you from finding a solution. If I'm high off my ass all the time after my shitty job that I hate, this is hypothetical, by the way, I love my job, but if I'm high off my ass every day after the job that I hate, I'm not going to be able to effectively look for a different job. I'm not going to be able to effectively fix the problem that my vice stems from. So the problem with using vices as a crutch is the fact that they aren't really a crutch. Yes, they're helping you maybe emotionally. Maybe they're even helping you like physically if you're like a truck driver who does meth. But the fact of the matter is they also detriment you in that they take you further away from the solution to the underlying problem. You get what I mean? So be very careful when you're using vice as a crutch and try to recognize when you are, because it's very hard to see it when you're in it. So, I guess I'll say this. You don't need to be perfect. That's the general message that I want to convey with this video. You don't need to beat yourself up for, just having a little bit of fun from time to time. I think that there is a issue in the self-improvement internet community. Self-improvement isn't this puritanical, rigid set of guidelines that people seem to think it is. It's just the idea of taking action to improve aspects of your physical and mental character. And if you pigeonhole yourself into being super strict with it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to slip up once, and you're going to use that one time as an excuse to fall back into negative behavioral patterns of degeneracy. Some people can pull off the strict Sigma grind set, the 1 out of 10. But I know for a fact it's simply too overbearing and unrealistic to expect of, a normal person. Like a guy on a diet, right? Fat guy on a diet. Imagine him right now. I'm going to put a fat guy on a diet on a screen. He's doing great. He's been at this diet for 3 weeks. He's been eating healthily. He goes out to the movies with a little lady friend of his, and he says, you know what? Maybe I'll drink a little soda, Maybe I'll drink a little soda for the first time in 3 weeks. I've been really rigid with this plan. I've eaten literally 0 sugar. So I'm just going to get a medium Coke. It's a little treat, no harm. And then he gets home and he feels so guilty about that soda because he's followed these strict guidelines for 3 weeks, and he's saying, man, fuck, I really messed up. Well, I guess I can eat that candy bar in the fridge with my meal tonight. It's just a little dessert. I already drank the soda. It's my cheat day. It's my cheat day, whatever. Listen, man, next thing you know, he gets back to eating like shit all day, every day because of some rigid, self-imposed rule. It's not natural, nor is it healthy to hold yourself to a set of standards that run completely contrary to whatever your current state of being is. You know, and I'm not saying you need like a taper program for dieting. I'm not saying it's like, you know, tapering off to avoid withdrawals. Although there are sugar withdrawals if you look it up. Fun fact. There are withdrawals to anything addictive, including like masturbation and porn. Fun fact. But I'm not saying you have to taper off of your vices or do any certain like method. What it really comes down to is you have to have in your mind a goal. You have to have in your mind some kind of ambition. You have to have a reason for doing these things. There's a saying in the, the rehab community where it's like you can't make someone quit who doesn't want to quit. And I think 9 times out of 10, people on YouTube, people online, they act like they want to quit. They act like they want to stop, but realistically, they don't have it in their hearts. And you really have to want it. You really do. And sometimes the way to allow yourself to even start self-improving is to give yourself more leeway than these Sigma male daddy tubers seem to want you to have. You know, my lifestyle is like this. I live probably the healthiest lifestyle I've ever lived. You know, I'm at a healthy weight. I'm really filling out recently. I'm on a bulk. You know, I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. I have a good job. I make a decent amount of money. I'm basically doing the best that I've ever done, really. But I also allow myself to have vice, really, whenever I feel like it is convenient to me or when I just want to do it. And because of my mindset that I want to improve myself and I want to be a good person, I don't allow myself to slip into the negative pattern that is just submerging yourself in the deep end of the pool. I think it's okay to have some vice. You know, I've said that like 5 times in this video right now. And I really think that it just comes down to you, yourself. Can you trust yourself to have a vice? Can you trust yourself to constantly be moving towards self-improvement, to be being productive and creating things that you want to create? You need to form your character into something that you can trust with that. It is a responsibility that we all have. You know, the weight of vice, it's unavoidable. So you have to be able to trust yourself. You know, you might consider yourself as your inner voice, you know? You hear that little voice in your head and you're thinking, yeah, these are my thoughts, you know, and objectively, I'm always making the right decisions. You need to be able to take into account your emotions. You want to know how I fixed my shit? I just based my actions on what I felt was beneficial to me. I tried not to allow my emotional state to influence my decision-making to the point at which it detrimented me. Like, oh, I'm supposed to go to the gym today, but oh, I'm feeling sad. Baby feeling sad. What should I do? Should I go to the gym like I planned? Or should I stay home and binge on Percocet while watching Kamiko Kana streams? Yeah, extreme example, and there's an obvious right answer, you know? Oh, you should probably go to the gym and not binge on Percocet and watch Kamiko Kana streams. But that's the thing, your emotional state will try to push you to go for Kana. You know, it's going to say, oh, your muscles are sore. Oh, think about how relaxing it would be. You know, you went to the gym the other day. Is it really that bad to miss a day? And your mind will come up with all of these different excuses to try and justify making an emotional decision. And it'll only be obvious to people who are outside of your mind. You know, it'll only be obvious to like a third-person perspective that that's what you're doing. Your mind is actively somewhat tricking you. It will try to convince you to take that Percocet. It will convince you, you know, it'll try its best to convince you to continue to maintain an addiction. Like, and I think anyone who has dipped their toes into specific parts of degeneracy, you know, like physical addictions, physical dependencies, will know this. Your mind is insidious. It'll grasp at anything. It will literally give you any excuse, any reason to indulge in vice. And what a lot of regular people don't realize is that you're doing that to yourself every single day, and you have to fight against it. You will constantly be trying to convince yourself to take the easy way out, to be lazy. I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just do it when, you know? I'd love to make a YouTube channel, but, you know, I think I'll just do it when I get a better computer, when I get a microphone set up. Oh, I would love to write a book, but I'll just do it when I subscribe to Office 365. That's a stupid example. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? Your mind tries to create any excuse to make your life as easy as possible. And while that's a survival mechanism to some degree, in modern society where we don't have to, you know, hunt woolly mammoths, it really is our number one enemy. You know, your number one enemy is your mind's constant impulse to make your life as easy as possible. And you have to constantly fight against it. Emotional regulation is a skill which people neglect to train. And I get it, saying, oh, you need to teach yourself to do emotional regulation. I get that the connotation is seen as negative because of the idea of bottling up your emotions. All right, this is a controversial opinion. I don't believe in bottling up emotions. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that the metaphor is accurate. Because the concept of bottling up emotions is that, you know, oh, you hold back from being angry because of a customer at work. You know, you hold back, you put on a smile, and then you get home and you just start punching your pillow and you're like, ah! I don't think that's real. I think that the idea of bottling up emotions is kind of like a cope just so that people can use their emotional state as like an excuse to not do something. In the real world, you know, we're all in the real world, right? But in worlds in which professionalism is, you know, necessary, in a world in which conducting yourself in a respectful manner is absolutely imperative, you cannot show, you know, you can't be angry at your boss. You can't cry in the middle of a meeting. I think it's necessary for a person to analyze themselves as a character. I view emotions as a subjective, liquid sort of thing, you know? I view emotions as sort of like the flowing of a river, so to speak. More so than something that you're able to bottle up and then release at a later date. I think that whole concept is flawed. I think it's important for people, and especially, you know, people in the age group of my audience, but also people of any age. I think it is absolutely one of the most important skills in life to be able to analyze who you are, to be able to analyze your emotions, to see how you feel each emotion, to see how you react to certain stimuli. You need to introspect, you need to self-analyze, and you need to recognize who you are in terms of your emotions. You know, are you the kind of person who is prone to have angry outbursts at things? Are you the kind of person who is prone to cry at the drop of a hat? You need to recognize those patterns of behavior and take steps towards addressing them. You need to be able to conduct yourself in a respectable manner. You can't allow your emotions to control your entire life, because all that ends up doing is it ends up following that aforementioned concept of the brain trying to make your life as easy as possible. You're just going to make a bunch of irrational, impulsive decisions, and it's going to ruin a lot of opportunities that could have presented themselves to you.
Triple Peppa Gaming. Sorry.
And it's a skill that's very much looked down upon in society today, because we have this culture of, you should just be yourself. You're perfect the way you are. Number one, you're not perfect the way you are. And I think that a lot of people misconstrue authenticity as impulsive, emotional decision making, you know? People hear the whole, oh, be authentic to yourself, you know, don't lie and try to be another person. I don't think that it is a lie to not scream at your boss when he tells you to go and wipe down the countertop. You know, I don't think that you're lying about who you are as a person when you choose not to try and, like, fist fight a McDonald's worker because they forgot cheese on your sandwich. These are extreme examples, you know, but any sort of emotional impulse that you have to make a irrational decision, I just want you to look at yourself and think if it's beneficial to you in that moment. I want you to take a second and analyze your actions before you take them. And I know that people say, oh, I do that. Yeah, maybe these dumb Karen videos, maybe they don't do that, but me? No, I'm perfect. I always do that. Listen, you don't realize it, but you do it. And, you know, everyone does it. And it's a skill that you have to train up. You have to actively you have to actively grind the emotional regulation grind set. Otherwise, you're going to end up as an immature man-child. You know, when I see a person in public, an adult, a 45-year-old man or woman, and they're acting extremely emotionally, whether they're yelling or they're having like a tantrum, what I see is an immature child who never was given the life experience necessary to grow the fuck up. And I don't want you to become that. You shouldn't end up on a Karen video. You know, you shouldn't end up in a, hey yo, why this hoe crying on the subway? I don't want you to end up like that. And I'm not saying it's never okay to cry, but I'm saying you should have a handle on yourself. You know, you should know who you are. You should know who you are better than anyone else. And a lot of people don't take the time to learn about themselves and their emotions and their emotional reactions to different stimuli. You got to think about it, you know, and it's a very important thing to think about. And yeah, you can still feel emotions. You know, I'm not telling you to be stone cold. I'm not telling you to be a stoic Sigma male. I mean, you can follow the principles of stoicism if you want, but humanity, you know, emotions are natural. They're a natural part of the human existence. So you can't expect yourself to be perfect on that avenue either. The reason I brought up emotional regulation and all that sort of thing is because it ties directly into the topic of today's video, of vice. Because it's those exact emotions which will be used to try and sway you into falling into vice, you know? Your brain will try to trick you, you know? It'll sense that you're feeling sad, and you're immediately going to want to reach for your first vice, you know? You're going to reach for your DOC. And you need to be able to recognize when that's happening. That is an aspect of emotional regulation. You need to be able to recognize when you are feeling like a vice-seeking sort of you know, you're feeling a call to the void. You need to be able to recognize that and be able to address it in a way that doesn't directly make you feel bad. And that's kind of like a complex minefield to navigate, but I think once you have a good handle on who you are and how you experience your own emotions, it becomes a lot easier to deal with vices. It becomes a lot easier to live a good life and avoid the constant trappings of modern society. And so that's what I want you to take away from this video. Everybody has vices, and it's okay to give yourself a little bit of leeway from time to time, you know? Have a little fun sometimes. That's okay. Everybody does it, you know? There's no need to feel guilt or shame about it unless you go too far. And that's the thing. Don't let yourself go too far. It's really easy to slip into the trap of losing yourself in whatever your vice might be. So you need to keep a tab on that. And also, you need to learn the skill that is learning about yourself, learning about your emotional reactions to things, learning about your emotions in your day-to-day life, and analyzing yourself as an individual. You need to be able to look within yourself and recognize when certain patterns of behavior are arising, because your conscious mind isn't normally aware of those things. Your conscious mind is trying to trick you into making your life as easy as possible, and it is absolutely necessary in terms of becoming a responsible, professional adult to be able to know yourself well enough to regulate those emotions, to regulate emotions which might lead you to make bad decisions. And so that's about it. That's my summary of the Schizo Rant. I've just seen way too many adults acting like children, people who have obviously never had, life experiences that led them to develop the skills of emotional regulation. And I think that we live in a world today where it's a skill that doesn't come naturally in our society, for the large majority of people at least. I recognize that there are a lot of people who come from home lives that have gained this skill, And I recognize that in the past, life was much harder and emotional regulation was imperative because everyone was wearing suits and everyone was conducting themselves as respectable gentlemen. You really got to put an active effort into it now. You really have to be able to introspect and look at yourself and kind of like know who you are. And that's a lot harder than it seems. It's just one of those things where until you're actively, consciously aware of it, until you catch yourself in the throes of an emotion and you recognize, why do I feel this way? How does it feel to feel this way? How can I remedy this? I think it's another one of those things in modern society where it once came naturally, but now you really got to try. And I can't blame you if that's something that's never crossed your mind. I can't blame you if you're someone who has a consistent pattern of behavior that is damaging to you as a result of emotions, because honestly, nobody told this shit to me. Nobody. If anything, people are telling everyone the opposite. People are saying, just let it out, let your emotions flow. Don't let them bottled up. The idea that emotions can even be bottled up is such a, it's just such a cope. It's a way for people to throw temper tantrums and say, oh, well, I was just feeling bad all week, and then I guess it all built up. I guess it stacked. Dude, emotions aren't quantifiable. They don't stack. Yeah, maybe you're having a bad week and you feel like having a tantrum. Hold yourself fucking back, dude. You're not a baby. I don't know. Of course, there are extreme situations. I don't want you to poke holes in this argument and say, oh, well, what if I get beaten nearly to death and I finally heal up and then I see the guy who beat me nearly to death and he's fucking my wife? Yeah, you can have a tantrum over that. Okay, I'm not arguing against that. I'm saying in daily life, emotional regulation is a necessary skill to living a good life and living a healthy life. And I don't think that that's something you can really argue. I think that that's common sense. I don't know. Maybe that's controversial, but that's what I think. I don't think there's anything wrong with holding yourself back from expressing an emotion, from letting yourself feel it and trying to let it pass over you. You know what I mean? And that's hard to do. It really is. But you can train it up. You can train up that skill. And eventually you can get to the point where you can just kind of, let it go. My service workers out there know what I'm talking about. My autistic fans know what I'm talking about. It's a skill that's necessary, dude. And I feel like until you're placed in a situation where you have to use it, you don't train it up. And the modern lifestyle is so optimized for convenience and comfort that most people don't have to train it up for their entire lives. Even Gen X, a lot of them never had to train it up. And that's the thing. If you're not being put into a position by the world, by God, to train up that skill, it is your responsibility to train it up yourself. Alright, so it might have seemed like I got a little off track talking about emotional regulation and stuff when the video's supposed to be about vice, but realistically I think that a lack of emotional regulation is the root cause for a lot of people's negative patterns of behavior in regards to vice. Many alcoholics are created because they don't know how to regulate their emotions, so they turn to alcohol. Many porn addicts are created because they don't know how to handle their feelings of sexual frustration, so they turn to gooning. So I think it all ties together, and realistically, if there is no physical underlying problem behind your addiction or your vice, 9 times out of 10, it's because you have a lack in the skill of emotional regulation. So that's me tying it all together there. So basically, a closing statement here. I think it's okay to have some vices so long as they don't negatively impact your life. Hell, I think it's okay to have literally any vice so long as you don't take it too far and it's not negatively impacting your life or the lives of people around you. I also don't want you jumping through mental gymnastics hoops to try and justify your vices, and I want you to introspect upon yourself and see what patterns of behavior are genuinely detrimenting you and what can be allowed in the name of fun. Really, what it all comes down to is you have to understand yourself in order to manage your vices, and there are many people in this world who don't understand themselves well enough to be able to moderate their own habits and vices. That's about it. I don't want to see any of my fans being those 40-year-old man children throwing tantrums in McDonald's, okay? Be respectful, be polite, and conduct yourself like a true connoisseur of fine arts, all right? And that's it. That's my closing statement. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hey, if you like this video right now, I'll give you a prescription of... That's right, you're finally quitting. That's right, no more for you. You're getting on now. Don't worry, it still gets you high. And also the withdrawals are probably worse than but you're not going to be doing no more. So think about it that way. Censor all of those words in that thing that I said because I think that would be funny. Anyways, thanks for watching, and as always...
Subscribe to make me feel better about my regrets.
But yeah, basically what I was trying to say is, like, as long as you're, like, cool and successful and everyone loves you, and you're balling out and you're healthy-ish, yeah, you can do whatever you want. That's basically it. TLDR, you know? Anyways, I'd like to give a special thank you and a special shout out to my Patreons over at patreon.com. We got Vershi, Thickmelon, Tech9, Sadfem, Prisoner Suicide, Polar, Knight of the World, Mercury Yogi, Frodo Bag of Weed, Derpy Doug, Conscious Junk, and Chairfruit. For our pseudo-intellectual supporters, we've got Slow, Slicing, Saws, the homie Moroni, Miso Sal, Pinks, and Zucchini. And last but most certainly not least, we've got our one and only super simp, the guy who's basically paying for my car insurance this month. Thank you so much to Dell. Hey, your love letter's in the mail right now. It should be arriving to you like probably in like a week or something. But yeah, I really appreciate your donation from the bottom of my heart. And thank you guys all for supporting my work and for standing by me through all this time. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And as always, keep it real.